Howdy, folks. Okay, so this second class live session for microeconomics in the summer, the reason I'm doing a YouTube video is for schedule conflicts and also to kind of experiment with using YouTube for this class. It's a good opportunity if everybody is viewing this class live through YouTube, so that means everyone is going to have to take notes and email them to me. So right now, maybe start up an email and start typing notes for this class live session so that you can get credit for this class live session. When you're done with the whole video, email me the notes. But like I said, the reason I'm doing this, I'm sort of experimenting with using YouTube, and also, during the summertime, schedules can be be conflicting. It's hard to get everybody together for one session. In particular, I was on vacation for 2 weeks. I actually just got back, and it was really hard for me to plan this class live session. So here it is, YouTube video, and what I'm going to do in this YouTube video is, or in this class live session, is I'm very simply going to go over all of the requirements for the 2 critical thinking papers that you have to write and that are due at the end of the semester. Both papers are due at the end of the semester. Okay? So I'm going to go over all the requirements right now. Okay? So here we go. Critical thinking paper number 1. Okay, about the assignment. This assignment is an assessment of the following performance standard for microeconomics. It's standard 1I. Students will make 3 recommendations for possible resolutions of the principal-agent problem based on a worldview of Christian theism. Okay? I want to say 2 things about this. The first thing I want to say is that I'm going to email this, or I should have already. You should have a copy of this PowerPoint presentation. When I sent you the link for this YouTube video, I included in that email a copy of this PowerPoint presentation. So you can print it out and follow along. You can if you decide to print it out, you could make notes all over it while you're following along on this in this video. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about is the principal-agent problem. In one of the lessons, and I can't remember which one, I think it's like lesson 1, I don't know, maybe it's lesson 1.3 or 1.4 or something, or maybe it's in a later lesson. But in one of the lessons, I go over the principal-agent problem, and I talk about the conflicts and the issues in the principal-agent problem. And I highly recommend that you review the principal-agent problem before writing the paper. It might actually be a good idea to review the principal-agent problem before even continuing this video so that you have a good understanding of what I'm talking about in this when I describe what you have to do in the papers. Okay, but here's the standard that you're going to be covering in this 1-page paper. What should I write? That's you. What should you write? Your goal for this critical thinking paper is to respond to the following essential question. How can principals and agents resolve some or all of the major conflicts in the principal-agent problem based on biblical values? Okay? Now, in order to respond to this question, you have to create a 1-page set of recommendations for how principals and agents can resolve their conflicts based on biblical values. And you have to understand the difference between a principal and an agent. Okay? Now, let me make one thing very clear. Okay? And the reason I sound so intense when I say this is because I've been assigning this paper for 5 years. And for 5 years, students have been submitting bad papers to me. Not all students, but some students will submit bad papers to me. Well, when I say bad papers, I mean they're terribly written, poorly written, and they don't focus on what they're supposed to focus on. Okay, so I'm going through all these requirements. The reason I sound so intense is because so many people have done such a poor job on these papers. Now, very clear. I want to make this very clear. Do not, under any circumstances, explain the principal-agent problem in the paper. Do not start explaining the principal-agent problem. Do not conclude explaining the principal-agent problem. I will assume that when you start writing this paper that you understand the principal-agent problem. I, in the lessons, have explained the principal-agent problem to you. So we both understand the principal-agent problem, and you do not have to explain it to me. You do not have to describe it. So any urge you have to type out an explanation of what the principal-agent problem is, don't do it. Okay? Focus on what you're supposed to be doing in the paper, which I'm about to explain. Okay, so in the paper, actually, let me come back to this example in just a minute. Okay, let me jump ahead here. What should I include in the paper? All right, oh, here it is. It's lesson 1.3. Okay, in lesson 1.3, I explain the principal-agent problem, as well as the conflicts and issues associated with the problem. So here's what you're going to do. In your paper, you are going to start your paper with the following statement. I, and then you're going to put your name in there, make the following 3 specific recommendations for resolving the principal-agent problem in a business. Okay, you are literally going to include this sentence, only you're going to put your name here. So like I would put, I, Professor Ryan, make the following 3 specific recommendations for resolving the principal-agent problem in a business. Okay? Now, the word specific, I want to take a minute here and discuss the word specific. Okay? Now, let's say, I'm going to talk briefly about the difference between something that's specific and something that is general. Okay? Let's say somebody says to you, hey, what do you want to eat for dinner? And you could say to them, I want to eat food. Well, telling them that you want to eat food for dinner is kind of dumb, because the assumption is when they say, what do you want to eat for dinner, the only thing you eat is food. So saying I want to eat food is very general. In fact, it's redundant. Okay? It's not even a good answer. It's not really even an answer to their question, what do you want to eat for dinner? Okay? Let's instead say that somebody says, what do you want to eat for dinner? And you say, pizza. Well, pizza is food, and it is something you can eat for dinner, but it's not very specific. It's not very specific at all. It's very general. It's just a type of food, pizza. Okay? Here's a specific answer. Somebody says, what do you want to eat for dinner? And you say, I want a New York-style pizza with extra cheese, tomato sauce, Parmesan, pepperoni, mushrooms, and onions. And I want 3 slices of that pizza with a 20-ounce Coca-Cola with the cup half filled with ice, and I would also like 2 garlic bread knots. Okay? That is a very specific answer. If you told me that as your answer, I could get you exactly what you want to eat for dinner. But just saying I want to have pizza I could show up with something that you don't enjoy eating. I could show up with too much food, not enough food. The fact that you didn't even tell me you wanted a drink, I might bring you water, and you might be upset. Okay? So now think about me. I'm telling you that I want 3 specific recommendations for the resolution of the principal-agent problem. You need to be specific. You need to tell me exactly how to resolve the principal-agent problem. So if you just say something like, you know, be honest. Be honest is not a specific recommendation. Be honest is a general recommendation. You're not even telling me who should be honest. Everyone should be honest. What do you mean everyone? I mean, there are only so many people involved in the situation. I need you to be specific as you can be. The less specific you are, the lower your grade will be. So if you give me a very general sort of, you know, a lot of people when they write papers as an assignment, they write very generally because they're, you know, almost like word vomit. They're just kind of writing something that sounds good. I don't like something that just sounds good. I like something that is good. I prefer quality. That's why you're writing a 1-page paper and you're not writing a 5-page paper, because I want one good page. I don't want a 5-page lame, fluffy, general paper, and I sure don't want a 1-page general, fluffy, 1-page general paper. I want specifics. I want you to be as specific as possible. Okay? So you're going to make 3 specific recommendations. What does that mean? What does specific mean? It means you're going to give details. You're going to get, like, when I say a New York style pizza, that's a detail. That I know I'm not going to get a Chicago style pizza. I know it's not going to be a Sicilian style pizza. It's going to be a hand-tossed pizza that's very flat. Okay? That's a New York style pizza. You're telling me you want pepperoni, mushrooms, and onions? You want cheese with some Parmesan, and you want the tomato sauce? I know that you don't want that Alfredo sauce. I know you're not going to want sausage. I also know that you want some toppings on it, not just plain cheese. Okay? You're giving me details about that pizza. Well, I want you to give me details about your recommendations for resolving the principal-agent problem. Okay? All right, so here's an example. Okay, if we go back here. And I'm going to give you some details. I didn't really put them in the written example, but I'll give you some details. Okay, here's an example. Matthew 25:14-28 tells the story of the parable of the talents, in which a rich man was going away and left 3 of his servants responsible for much of his money. 2 of them worked hard to double their master's money, and they were honored for this. The 3rd did nothing useful with the money, and this displeased his master. This story indicates that one biblical way to resolve the principal-agent problem is for the agents to understand that they are responsible to care for the principal's investment as if it was their own, ignoring what they want for themselves or how they feel about the principal. And then I could say, if the, or in the story, Matthew 25:14-28, I could say that one of the servants had, he doubled a lot of money, and the second servant, he doubled a moderate amount of money, but they doubled their money, and they did not expect to get anything for themselves. Now, in the end, they did get something better for themselves. But the 3rd guy, the one who did not, the 3rd did nothing useful with the money, and it displeased his master. Notice how I specifically state that the 3rd one, his behaviors displeased his master. Okay? And I state that the one way to solve the problem is that agents, that's the people who are the employees, that if they understand that they're responsible to care for the principal's investments as if it was their own, okay, then that can resolve the issue of selfishness, the issue of self-interest seeking with guile. And I can write that in here. This resolves the issue of opportunism, self-interest seeking with guile, by being selfless to what the principal wanted. Okay? Now please note that this is just one example of how a passage from the Bible can be interpreted and applied to the principal-agent problem. Do not use this example in your paper. Because I have used this story in this explanation as an example, I don't want you to use this example in your paper. You could use the same parable, but you can't use it the same way that I used it. Okay? So if I see this, I'm going to look really closely to see if you're basically saying the same thing as me, and you're going to lose points for it. Okay? But I did want to give you an example of how the Bible can show a solution to the principal-agent problem. And there are 66 books in the Bible. I could probably find something in every single book of the Bible that would help resolve the principal-agent problem. So be creative and use your critical thinking. Okay? All right, so what should I include in the paper? All right, here's what you're going to do. So after you make your introduction here, I make the following 3 specific recommendations. You are then going to write 3 paragraphs, each one giving a specific recommendation for resolving the principal-agent problem. Okay? Overall, this is going to be 3 recommendations. Okay? Now, you must include, and not necessarily in this order, you have to include the recommended solution. Okay, so you have to give me a specific recommendation. Number 2, you have to give me a scripture reference. And number 3, an explanation of how this recommendation resolves the principal-agent problem. Okay, you have to give me all 3 of these things for each of the 3 recommendations. Now, you can use, this could be very helpful, if you go to Doc Sharing, okay, inside of the eCollege Classroom, you'll see this document down here, CT Paper 1 Template Micro.docx. If you download that Word document, what it's going to look like this. And basically all you have to do is highlight this part where it says put your name in here and type your name in. And then for 1, 2, and 3, you can highlight this whole thing and then start typing. And in this space, you are going to do this. You're going to describe your first recommendation to resolve the principal-agent problem. You'll get 1 point for that. You're going to include a scripture reference that supports your recommendation. That's 1 point. Number 3, you're going to explain the connection between your scripture reference and your recommendation, along with which conflict or issue it resolves. And you can find those conflicts and issues in Lesson 1.3, okay, and how it resolves it. That's your 3rd point. If you do that, you're going to do 3 separate recommendations. Don't do the same one 3 times. Don't do 3 different versions of the same recommendation. I need 3 separate recommendations. That's 3 points here, 3 points here, 3 points here. That's 9 points. And then there's 1 more point for overall formatting of the paper. Okay? How long should the paper be? The paper must be at least 1 full single-spaced page. Note that full page means that the text extends all the way to the bottom of the page. There are people who turn in a half a page of a paper and they say, well, that's 1 page. No, that's half of a page. 1 full page is text from top to bottom, and that's typically 42 to 44 lines at 12-point font. Okay? So basically, you have to have 2 lines for the introductory sentence, and then an average of no less than 13 lines per recommendation. for a total of 41 lines of text in 12-point font. So 13, 13, and 13 makes 39, plus the two-line introduction, that's 41. Okay? Minimum. All right, your formatting. All right, here are the requirements for formatting. The document must be letter size, that's 8.5 by 11, and text must be single-spaced, not 1.15 spaced. Did you know that the default setting for Microsoft Word is spacing at 1.15? You have to change that. If you don't change it, and every semester I get papers that are spaced at 1.15, and I can see them right away, and instantly they lose points. Nobody whose paper is spaced at 1.15 will get full points for this paper. You will automatically lose at least 1 point, possibly more. Okay? The page margin should be 1 inch on all sides. So the left side has to be 1 inch, the right side is 1 inch, the top is 1 inch, and the bottom is 1 inch. Okay? All right, number 3. The font size for the whole paper must be somewhere between 10-point and 12-point. 12-point is the largest, 10-point is the smallest. You could make it 11-point, 11.5, 10.5. Okay? But the smallest is 10 and the largest is 12. If you set your font at 10 and then it's still too long, you need to edit your paper. It's too long. Okay? The font must be Times New Roman. Only Times New Roman. No other font. Understand? All right, now, I want you to include 1 blank space between each of the recommendation paragraphs. Let me show you what I mean by that. See here, here's the introductory sentence, then there's a space. Here's your first recommendation, then there's a space. Here's your second recommendation, then there's a space. Though that space is required. Okay, so now here we go. So formatting, here we go. Include 1 blank space between each of the recommendation paragraphs. You will be graded on spelling and proper use of grammar. Okay, all right. So let's see here. So when and where is it due? When? You must submit this assignment by 11:59 p.m. on July 6th. That's a Sunday. July 6th, 2014. Okay? And where? You must submit this assignment to the correct eCollege drop box. Let me show you where that is. I go back here to here. Look up here, these tabs. There it is. It's right next to doc sharing. It says Dropbox. You have to submit your papers in the Dropbox. Okay, when and where is it due? You must submit this assignment to the correct eCollege Dropbox by the deadline stated above. Assignments sent by email, not okay. Doc sharing, not okay. Or any other method will not be considered as having been submitted. You have to submit it through the Dropbox. Okay? Scoring. You will be given points according to the following requirements for a total of 10 points. So the paper is out of 10 points. You will get 1 point for proper formatting. That's 1 through 5 here. 1 through 5. As long as you get 1 through 5 correct, then you'll have 1 whole point. And then you're going to have 3 points per recommendation as follows. For each recommendation, you'll get a point for the description of the recommendation to resolve the principal-agent problem. For each recommendation, you'll get 1 point for including a scripture reference that supports your recommendation. By the way, I've seen people give recommendations and then give a scripture reference, and then I look up that scripture, and it doesn't match the recommendation at all. It's completely off the wall. It doesn't match, and so you do not get that point. And let me take this opportunity to say, do not type this right now in your notes and email it to me, or include it in the notes you email me. Do not type out all of the words that you see in the Bible. Like, let's say that, your scripture takes up, 8 lines in your paper. I am going to highlight everything you typed out from the Bible and delete it and remove 8 lines. All I want is the scripture reference. Please note back here in my example. Do you notice all I said was Matthew 25:14-28 tells the story of the parable of the talents. And then I briefly give an explanation of the parable. What I did not do was type out the quoted scripture from the Bible. That would have taken up too much space. So do not do that. All I want to see is the scripture reference itself, just the book, the chapter, and the verse numbers. But I don't want the biblical text itself. Do not include the biblical text. All right, let's see here. Oh, I'm going the wrong way here. Sorry about that. All right, so you must include a scripture reference. And then for the third point in each recommendation, you must explain the connection between your scripture reference and your recommendation, along with which conflict or issue it resolves and how it resolves it. You'll get the third point for that. If you do that 3 times, that's 1, 2, 3, then 4, 5, 6, then 7, 8, 9, and then 1 point for formatting. That's 10 points. Okay? All right, now, in addition to that, additionally, points will be deducted for the following errors or deficiencies. I'm going to deduct 1 point for every misspelled word. So check your spelling. I'm going to deduct 1 point for each line of text fewer than 41 lines. So if you finish your paper and I count all of your text lines, not the spaces, just the text. If I count them up and it's 39 lines, you're going to lose 2 points on your paper. So if you would have had a 10, now you have an 8. If you would have had a 7, now you have a 5. Okay? And you're going to lose 1 point every time you explain something that is already explained in the lessons. The purpose of the paper is not for you to reiterate general microeconomic knowledge. So every time you start explaining the principal agent problem to me, I'm going to deduct a point. So don't do that, okay? All you have to do is explain the connection. Explain the connection between your scripture reference and your recommendation, along with which conflict or issue it resolves and how it resolves it, okay? All right, so that's that. All right, that's the first paper. Now let's talk about the second paper. Critical thinking paper number 2. Okay, about the assignment. This assignment is an assessment of the following performance standard for microeconomics. Standard 2N. Students will describe at least 2 business issues surrounding the use of labor from developing countries and recommend how to deal with each issue based on the worldview of Christian theism. Okay? Now, this assignment addresses the following essential questions. First, what are the controversial issues in the debate over using labor from developing countries? Second, how can a business respond to the controversial issues in the debate over using labor from developing countries? So the first one is, what are the controversial issues? And the second one is, how can a business respond to the controversial issues? What should I write? Write a 1-page typed paper describing at least 2 business issues surrounding the use of labor from developing countries, and make at least 1 recommendation on how a business can deal with each of these 2 issues based on the worldview of Christian theism. So look, you're going to describe 2 issues. and you're going to make one recommendation per issue described. So you're actually going to make two recommendations. You're going to describe one issue, one problem, one controversy, and then a recommendation on how a business can deal with it from a Christian point of view. And then you're going to describe a second issue, and then you're going to give a recommendation on how a business can deal with that controversy from a Christian point of view. Now, there's an extra assignment that goes along with this. In order to write this paper, before writing your paper, you have to read the two following articles, and the links for these two articles are in the assignment description. The first one is called The Campus Anti-Sweatshop Movement. You might even be able to Google the article. The second one is called Two Cheers for Sweatshops. Okay? This paper, this first one, is sort of an anti-sweatshop article, like against sweatshops. And if you're not sure what a sweatshop is, you can Google it. Okay? And then the second one is pro-sweatshop and tells all the good things about sweatshops. Okay? All right, so and this is what they look like. Okay? Here's in the American Prospect, the Campus Anti-Sweatshop Movement, and here's the article. Okay, it starts down here. For those of you who are wondering, the University of Arizona sit-in is still going on. Actually, it's not, because it was going on back in 1999. Okay, and then over here, Two Cheers for Sweatshops. This one was written, I don't see the date on it, but it was in the New York Times Magazine. It was a long time ago. It was probably 1999 or 98 or something. It was breakfast time, and the food stand in the village in northeastern Thailand was crowded with, sorry, and this must be a person, the middle-aged woman. Anyway, you're going to read the article. So you're going to read this article, then you're going to read this article. Do not try to write this paper without reading these articles. Read the articles first, then write the paper, okay? All right, so read the articles. After you've read the articles, after reading the articles, you will write 3 paragraphs. 3, just 3, not 2, not 4, not 5. Exactly 3 paragraphs, 3 only, okay? If I open your paper and see 5 paragraphs, you automatically lose because you already have not followed my directions. 3 paragraphs only. Okay? In the first paragraph, you will briefly discuss 2 problems or issues related to businesses using labor from other countries. Issues that have been identified in one of the articles. There are plenty of controversies identified in these articles. You're going to briefly discuss 2 of them. Briefly. That's the key word here. Briefly. You're just going to make me aware of the problems that you are deciding to focus on. Okay? In the second paragraph, you will explain a scripturally supported argument on how a business can deal with the first issue. So in the second paragraph, you're going to explain, well, what can a business do? What can a Christian business person do? Or let me rephrase that. What can a business person who is a Christian do to deal with this controversial issue, the first one? And then in the third paragraph, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to provide a scripturally supported argument on how a business can deal with the second issue that you identified in the first paragraph. Okay? Now, the paper must, how long should the paper be? The paper must be at least 1 full single-spaced page. Note that full page means that the text extends all the way to the bottom of the page. Now listen to this. Please don't get this wrong. Your first paragraph should be no more than 7 or 8 lines. If your first paragraph is half of the paper, I am going to delete most of it down to 8 lines and read just that. I do not want this first paragraph to take up half of your paper. 7 to 8 lines, 7 minimum, 8 maximum. Okay? The second and third paragraphs should each be about 16 to 18 lines. So if you have one of them's 18, one of them's 16, that's 34 lines. And then your first paragraph is 8 lines, that's 42 lines. That's a full page. Now, this fourth point here is near and dear to my heart. There is no need for a concluding paragraph. Do not include a concluding paragraph. I hate concluding paragraphs. I really do. You already said everything you wanted to say. I read it the first time. I don't want to read it again. I don't care what any English teacher taught you about saying what you're going to say in the first paragraph, then saying it again, and then saying it a third time in the conclusion. I do not care what they taught you. I am telling you, no concluding paragraph. You only have to say it to me one time. I read it, I got it, okay? And again, I'm sorry for my frustration. It's just that I've gotten students who have complained and said, well, I followed the rules of the Writing Center. I went to the Writing Center and they helped me with this paper. And then my question is, did you bring my PowerPoint with you? Did you show them that I said no concluding paragraph? Because if they read that, they would know, don't put a concluding paragraph in your paper. Okay? All right. We've only got a couple slides left here. Formatting. The document must be letter-sized, 8.5 by 11, and text must be single-spaced. Include only, number 2, every semester I get frustrated, somebody breaks number 2, and I'm okay. I don't get that upset. I just, like, in my mind, I'm like, were they not listening to me? Include only your name at the top of the page. No title, no date, nothing but your name. Just put your name at the top of the page and then write your paper. There should be no more than a single space between your name and the first paragraph. The page margin should be 1 inch on all sides, just like in the first paper. Font size for the whole paper has to be somewhere between 10 point and 12 point, just like the first paper. The font must be Times New Roman, just like the first paper. Now, unlike the first paper, here's a big difference. In the first paper, I told you to put spaces between the recommendations. But in this paper, do not include any spaces between paragraphs. The only place you're going to have a space is, here it is you're going to put your name and then a single space between your name and the first paragraph. Then, no spaces between paragraphs from then on. If Microsoft Word inserts spaces between paragraphs, you will need to figure out how to remove them. Number 7, you must indent the first line of every paragraph. I did not expect that in the first paper. But in this paper, I do expect you to indent the first line of every paragraph, and you will be graded on spelling and proper use of grammar. Okay? All right, last slide here. When and where is it due? When. By the way, if you have any questions about these papers, even though we're not in the live class right now, I want you to email me your questions. If you're not sure about all this stuff we're talking about in this, all this stuff I'm describing, if you have any questions about any of it, send me an email. And by all means, please send me an email to professor_Ryan@live.com, because it's going to be a lot faster than sending me an email any other way. Okay? All right, when and where is it due? When? You must submit this assignment by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, July 6, 2014. That is the last day of class. Everything has to be done by July 6th. Where? You must submit this assignment to the correct eCollege Dropbox, just like I mentioned before on the other paper, by the deadline stated above. Assignments sent by email, doc sharing, or any other method will not be considered as submitted. Well, that's it. That's the whole ClassLive. If you should have taken notes this whole time, you can now send me that email, and I will give you credit for ClassLive number 2. If you have any questions about any of these papers, either of these papers, email them to me, and then I'll give you a quick answer back. Okay? Well, as fast as I can. And that's it. Send me any opinions you have about this video. It's an experiment. I'm trying to make use of YouTube. I really like YouTube, and I think it's a good learning tool. So there you have it. Otherwise, I'll see you guys later, and have a great day.